Hello and welcome again to this module where we are going to be talking about adjusting or entering the maximum capacity for our work resources. We are also going to be looking at entering the pay rates for these work resources. Earlier on, I described capacity as availability of an individual resource to work on a particular task. So if a person has got an 8-hour working day, if they are available for a particular task for the whole day, then we say that their capacity is 100%. But if they are only available for 4 out of 8 hours, then their capacity is only 50% on that particular task. So when we are specifying 100% maximum units, it means that 100% of that resource's working time is available to work on the assigned tasks. For a resource that works on multiple tasks that overlap, the sum of the overlapping tasks cannot exceed 100%. So in other words, if a person is working on 2 or 3 projects at the same time, their maximum capacity is 100%. So we can divide that 100% among the projects that he is assigned. So it could be 20% on one project, 30% on the second, and 50% on the third. The total is 100%. And then for resources that do not represent a specific person, but a category of interchangeable people with a common skill set, you can enter a larger maximum unit value to indicate the number of available people. For example, if we have got 2 people that are bricklayers and they are both available for 100% of the day, then under the bricklayer we put a capacity of 200% to indicate that there are 2 people. But you could also have a case where you have, say, 4 people that are working, but each one is only available for 50% of the time. We are still going to have the capacity of 200%. So 200% is either 2 people at 100% each, or it can be 4 people at 50% each. You can also enter less than 100% for a resource that is less than full-time availability. For example, you might have a part-time worker who only comes for a few hours a day, or a full-time worker who is only devoting part of his time to the project. So in that case, you could even have the name of a person, John, and then on the capacity it's only 50% or 75%. Next, we look at how we can enter the pay rates for the work resources. When we are executing a project, it is important that we be able to track all the costs that are being incurred during the execution of the various tasks. So the tracking and managing of costs allows the project manager to answer questions such as, what is the expected total of the project based on task duration and resource assignments? Is the organization using expensive resources to do work that less expensive resources could do? How much money will a specific type of resource or task cost over the life of the project? Is the organization spending money at a rate that it can sustain for the planned duration of the project? So you can only make decisions or take corrective action if you have got information on your fingertips. So when it comes to cost, it is necessary that you record every single cost as it is incurred during the project. So at every stage, the manager will be able to check and see the projected cost that is on the project plan. How do we compare it with the actual cost that we've incurred so far? In MS Project, you can enter standard rates and cost per use for work and material resources, as well as overtime rates for work resources. So when you are talking of a standard rate, the word rate means that it's a unit charge that is being incurred either per day, per hour, per kilogram, depending on the unit of charge. Then when we talk about cost per use, this is a once-off charge. In other words, if you use the item once, there is a fixed cost associated with that particular use of the item. Cost resources do not use pay rates. Remember, we say that cost resources are items like travel expenses, entertainment, so there is no rate to say travel per day or travel per whatever. You only record it as and when it happens, because there is no pattern to how these costs are incurred. For work resources that use pay rates, we can enter these pay rates using a variety of time bases. For example, we can put a rate per minute, a rate per hour, daily rate, a weekly rate, etc. So when we are entering these rates in MS Project, we use abbreviations. So for example, if you put 30/M, that is $30 per minute. 30/H is $30 per hour. 30/D, $30 per day. 30/W is $30 per week. 30/MO is $30 per month. And 30/Y is $30 per year. So MS Project will only apply overtime rates when you specifically record overtime hours for an assignment. In general, it is using the standard working calendar of Monday to Friday from 8 o'clock to 5 o'clock. So if there is overtime, you need to specifically add an overtime component. If you have got a large number of people or resources that use the same standard rate or the same overtime rate, you can set this up as a universal default in the options menu. We have been there before, where you click on the file tab, then you go to the options. So there's a place there where you can set standard rates so that MS Project automatically uses that rate because it is being applied to most of your resources. We can also specify when our work resource standard and overtime costs should accrue. So in other words, we need to specify at what stage of the task we actually raise the charge. Is it at the start of the project, at the end of the task, or on a prorated basis? So the prorated, that is the default, where we are evenly spreading the charge over the duration of the task. If we used the first method of at the start of the task, it means that the moment you indicate that the task has started, immediately the full cost of the resource is charged to that particular task. In the same way, if you indicate you are going to be charging at the end of work on the task, it means if you are working for a week, for that whole week, there is no cost associated with that task. But at the end of the task, that is when the full cost is then charged to that task. But the prorated method says if we are working for 4 days and the charge is $100 per day, if you work for 1 day, the cost for that day is charged. So in other words, after the first day, we indicate the cost of the task is now $100. After 2 days, the cost of the task is now $200. So we are recording the actual cost being incurred as we execute the task. So earlier on, I made mention of the cost per use, because in addition to your standard rate, sometimes you can include a set fee, in other words, a fee that is fixed, that is applied to each task. Let's say, for example, we decide we are going to add what we call a management fee, because we know that the tasks are being performed by individuals, bricklayers, the plumbers, etc. But there's a manager working in the office, there are administrators doing work in the office, so we can calculate what the total overhead cost is, so to speak, and divide it by the number of tasks. So we can then say the average overhead cost is so much. Then we apply it as a management fee. So this is what we now call the cost per use, because it is fixed. It is not a rate that changes with the duration of the task. What we are going to be doing next is going back to our resources on our project file. Then we are going to adjust the capacities as well as enter the pay rates for the different resources. Okay, now we are back on our project file. We discussed first the issue of the maximum capacity. So because we used job titles under the resource name, it means for some of the tasks there could be more than one person working under each resource name. So if there is more than one person working under each resource name, we change the capacity according to the number of people as well as their availability. So remember, we said you can either reduce the maximum capacity or you can increase it to greater than 100. So when you put 200, either you are saying there are 2 people that are working on that particular task, or there are 4 people, but each one of them is working at 50%. For now, I would like to leave all our maximum capacities at 100%, and we are only going to change the standard rates. So we are going to change the work rates. So you can see this column is for the standard rate, and the next column is for overtime. Then the next column is cost per use, and then we come to accrued at. We discussed the 3 methods, and we said we are going to use the prorated, and then the base. This refers to the base calendar, meaning that you can actually define whether your resources are working with the same calendar that you put as the default on the project. So in the next module, we'll be discussing how to change or how to adjust working days for individual resources if their working time is not exactly corresponding with the standard calendar. So let us put some rates. Our architect is going to work at $1,000 per hour. Let's increase this column. Our general worker, we are going to charge them at $250 per hour. Bricklayers will be charged at $400 per hour. Electricians will be charged at $750 per hour. Plumbers will charge them at $600 per hour. Our painters will charge them at $600 per hour. And then our carpenters, $700 per hour. Then we come to the equipment. The concrete mixer, $2,000 per hour. The tile cutter, we charge it at $100 per hour. And then the ladder, we charge it at $10 per hour. So if there was overtime, you then decide which of these workers are allowed to do overtime. So then we'll say, okay, the people who are going to be working the most are the bricklayers. So we put the overtime rate for the bricklayers as 600, which is 1.5 times their standard rate. And then we come to cost per use. Remember, we said cost per use is a fixed fee that we apply, and we gave the example of a management fee. So we are going to apply a fixed management fee that every time one of these people work and every time each of these equipment work, we apply a management fee of $100. So that's our cost per use. Okay, so I would like you to go to your project file, open it, and update your resource sheet so that it is the same as mine. So you can use the same figures that I used here so that when we generate the reports, you will not be surprised where your figures are coming from. So I will see you in the next module, where we are going to be discussing how to change the working hours or working time for individual resources.